Welcome, everybody. I know it's been a while since I heard the song too, Shane. I'm bopping around to it as well. Welcome, everybody, to this special Geek Bites episode of the
Geek Buddies! Hey!
This is a special animation episode of the Geek Buddies. We're going to jump into a review of the trailer for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, our reaction review conversation there, and then we're going to jump into a spoiler review for What If Volume 3. Basically, talk about the episodes after episodes 1 and 2, which we covered in an earlier review, and just kind of give our overall thoughts on the season, what worked, what didn't work, and what we felt about it overall. But I am the Outlaw John Rocha, writer, producer, and host here on the Geek Buddies.
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm a television actor and an animation writer, and you're going to be able to see me next month on Max's series, The Pit.
The Pit, starring Noah Wiley. All right, let's jump into it. It's not wasting any time here, man. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, this trailer dropped, as we're recording this, it dropped on Sunday. Surprised a lot of people with the dropping of it on a weekend. And the official logline of this describes the show as, quote, an animated series that follows Peter Parker on his way to becoming a hero with a journey unlike we've ever seen in style that celebrates the character's early comic book roots. We got some cool shots of a new outfit, or I don't read the comics that religiously anymore, but that was a new outfit to me. We got shots of some of the characters who are going to be part of this a little bit more in action. And in the end, though, a great shot and time spent with Peter Parker here. So, Michael Vogel, your thoughts on this trailer? Did it work for you? Did you like it? Did you like the animation style? What did you think overall? We got to meet Norman Osborn. We got to see this progression, and we got to see a Midtown High. We got to see a good taste of this animated series. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's good that we're reviewing this trailer as we're reviewing What If, because in effect, this is just one giant What If series. I mean, this is not Peter Parker in the MCU that we know. This is an alternate Peter Parker with alternate characters, alternate vibes. I really like the animation style, first off. I think one of the things you can definitely say for Marvel is they've definitely been pushing the boundaries between X-Men 97 harkening back to the 90s series, What If having a very distinctive style, and now this Spectacular Spider-Man series. They're definitely doing some different stuff. Or Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Sorry, I always have Spectacular Spider-Man on the brain. But I really like the style. I like how it harkens back to classic sort of Ditko era comic books. I think it looks really neat. And I think the thing that I liked the most about the trailer is, you know, in our MCU, Peter Parker was mentored by Tony Stark.
Yeah.
And Tony Stark gave him his suits. Tony Stark sort of teed him up to be an Avenger. Tony Stark was his mentor in a lot of ways. The MCU Peter Parker, even though some classic Spider-Man fans didn't love it, was kind of like Tony Stark Jr. in a lot of ways. And I thought that was a really strong, I think one of the strongest relationships in the first 3 phases of the MCU. And so now that we're getting into the Norman Osborn and the Harry Osborn in this version, having Norman Osborn being the super rich tech tycoon who is mentoring Peter Parker, giving him his upgraded suits. It's like it parallels what we know from the MCU, but obviously Tony Stark and Norman Osborn are 2 very different people. So that combined with a lot of new characters that are being introduced, plus word coming out that you know, Charlie Cox and D'Onofrio are going to be the voices of Kingpin and Daredevil. I think we're gearing up to have like a very different Spider-Man series than any Spider-Man series that has come before. So all in all, I was excited by this trailer. I will say, and this does leak in a little bit to our What If review, I'm not the biggest fan of where Marvel animation is at this moment, so I was maybe a little bit more cautious as I watched this trailer than I normally would be. But all in all signs point to this being a really fun and different take on Spider-Man.
Oh, Shannon, your thoughts? I mean, this is Peter Parker voiced by Hudson Thomas. As we mentioned, Norman Osborn is in here, but that's voiced by Coleman Domingo here, and quite a lot of voices being a part of this one as well. When you've got Hugh Dancy, Eugene Bird, great song, Charlie Cox, Zeno Robinson, Jeff Trammell is the head writer on this one, and Mel Wire is the supervising director. So did they get you excited for a series here from this trailer? Because we were at Comic-Con, we've seen footage, we've seen stills of this, we've seen the animation style. So now seeing it all cobbled together in this trailer, what are your thoughts?
From a storytelling angle, I think this is fun. I think if you want to do another Spider-Man series, and there have been a lot, and some of them have been fantastic, and some of them
Yeah.
not so much. I think to
Some of them have been spectacular, you might say.
yeah, I think approaching it from a different angle, I thought was a smart choice, especially
Yeah.
since this is a different a different mentor in the form of Norman Osborn. I mean, I think Coleman Domingo is always for an actor that we were all super jazzed about, like maybe he's gonna be Kang. Coleman Domingo, I think has a lot of love in the geek community, and getting to see him take on Norman Osborn. Great idea. We did see some stills from this back when it was Spider-Man freshman year at Comic-Con a few years ago.
Oh yeah.
I like the redesign. I like the redesign of Spider-Man. I think this is a cool, different way to do it. But this is also the way a kid would do it. I mean, he's wearing knee pads. He's got basically like some sort of jersey on top of his costume.
Yeah.
The thing that kind of, as I was watching the trailer, which this is the first we've seen of it, was seeing those designs in motion. My eyes didn't like it. Now, that's not to say that they won't adjust once I get used to that. But initially, I'm like, it's really flat. It really doesn't have a ton of depth. But I think that might have been a creative choice in terms of this sort of Steve Ditko comic come to life. So from a storytelling angle, I'm absolutely going to check it out because I think it is an interesting way to tell that story. We'll see how long I stay on, because there has certainly been animation in the past that my eyes were a little like, this doesn't look right. And eventually my eyes became acclimatized to this style. And there have been other comics where it didn't. And I was kind of like, man, I really like the story, but my eyes just aren't jiving with this take. So we'll kind of see what happens. But again, in terms of the writing, I'm really curious to check it out.
Yeah, I liked this. This was nice energy, and I know they were trying to keep it like cool with the hip hop music, which I thought was a bit off in my opinion. I think that's the Miles Morales territory. No offense. So I get they were
You
trying
have
to
never sounded more like a grandpa sitting on his porch in his rocker talking about, in my day, comic books didn't have the hippity hop flippity jibbity dibbies.
I'm saying white boy Peter Parker don't need the hip hop. Keep that for Miles. I like that for Miles. So, but there were elements of this that felt very similar to Spider-Verse. I mean, him running across the street, getting hit by the taxi, the shot of Midtown High is very similar. So there were a lot of things, obviously, that connected back that I was in my mind thinking about animation wise and what have you. So it felt familiar, but I love the look. Like the look of Spider-Man is great. The characters they bring in here, it's good energy. I like the colors. It's a very vibrant animation that you can see clearly, and his moving around I thought works. It's a little weird with the head stuff, but overall when he's moving around doing the action, I think it's interesting to watch. So, and then bringing in Norman Osborn, and what's Harry's role in all of this, and who is Harry supposed to be with Peter in this universe? I'm very curious to see and how it all connects. And this may be their soft introduction of Norman Osborn into the MCU.
I was wondering that. I was, to your point and to what Shannon was saying, the geek community is a big fan of Coleman Domingo. There was obviously a lot of talk about Coleman Domingo stepping in to replace Kang when we thought that was something that was going to happen. Yeah. But when we've got Vincent D'Onofrio and Charlie Cox voicing Daredevil and Kingpin.
Yeah.
We don't have Tom Holland voicing Peter Parker, so it sort of could go either way. But if this was Norman Osborn in this universe, and then somewhere down the line, Coleman Domingo showed up in live action, I don't think anybody would be upset by that.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. That's a great way to roll him in there. What do you think, Shannon?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it'll be interesting because it sure sounds like Tom Holland is approaching the end of his run as Peter Parker. And are the next two movies, is that enough time to introduce an antagonist as big as Norman Osborn that you want to potentially continue on in whatever this new MCU is going to be post Secret Wars? Is there a world where Miles Morales and Norman Osborn end up going up against each other?
That could be
Tom Holland's Peter Parker has already, I mean, in my opinion, Tom Holland's Peter Parker's greatest villain is actually Norman Osborn. It's just not the Norman Osborn from his universe. Willem Dafoe killed Aunt May and drove Tom Holland to almost murder and turning to the dark side. Basically, they redeemed Willem Dafoe's, in my opinion, kind of cheesy, ridiculous Sam Raimi Green Goblin from the first movie and turned him into a really compelling thing. Now, Norman Osborn says in No Way Home, there is no Oscorp in the MCU universe. So I don't know that you can all of a sudden just have Oscorp be there, but post Secret Wars, I think that maybe a Coleman Domingo type Norman Osborn could maybe be a good villain for a future Spider-Man, perhaps a Miles Morales.
Listen, we've seen
like how I just said.
I'm just saying, like
I literally just said.
He's underlining.
No, but I mean, I thought. Sorry, I misunderstood. I thought you were saying that there wasn't enough time in 2 more movies to sort of have Green Goblin show up or Norman Osborn show up and be a Tom Holland sort of antagonist. And I was just saying I don't think they need to do that at all.
Yeah,
like how I just said.
Okay,
I misunderstood what you said. I apologize. Maybe if you were clearer and didn't
Stop looking at your phone.
So vague.
Focus on the show.
Luther Core. If they have Luther Core in DC, maybe they can do Norman Core. There is no Oscorp, but there is a Norman Core or an Osborn Core. I don't know, but either way, I think it is. I think there's this. I think it feels like a soft open to a Norman Osborn character now becoming a part of the MCU into the new phase in some element, in some way. If it's Coleman Domingo, I think that would be awesome. I think that would be really exciting to see. Or, God, I hope it's not kind of sharing it with Sony because I want to leave that alone. So I hope it's the MCU approach because you do need another billionaire kind of person coming in here in the MCU and doing whatever, filling that kind of role here, but from a negative point of view, as opposed to what Tony Stark was, which was positive in the end. So I would be interesting to see. But either way, just this is a good trailer. For me, someone who doesn't always dive into animation, this one made me excited to see what it's going to be like.
Yeah. So, we know that's well-trod territory.
Fine, yes. Well, we'll see. This one is coming out January 29th, I think, is when it debuts, and there's already a season 2 that is in development. So clearly they're very high and positive about this series, and I'm sure we'll get one more trailer before it comes out, and we'll talk about it, of course.
It was going to be Spider-Man sophomore year.
That's right. Yeah. No, we'll see what happens. All right, let's move on to What If. Yes, Volume 3 wrapped up yesterday as we're recording this. It wrapped up on Sunday. The final episode, the 7th episode, came out, which we saw these ladies getting together to battle 3 Watchers along with a Uatu. And all that went down in that finale. But, we haven't reviewed the show since episode 2, and there have been some fun episodes with like Darcy and Howard the Duck and their daughter, who showed up as one of the 4 there, Birdie on the left, voiced by Natasha Lyonne, by the way, which I did not recognize that voice at all. I thought it was Lenore Zahn, and then I thought it was Holly Hunter, and it was Natasha Lyonne. And we also got this awesome, I thought, really cool Western episode there with Simu Liu coming back as Shang-Chi, and then Haley Steinfeld coming back there as Kate Bishop. So I went to Michael first on Spider-Man. So Shannon, I'll go to you first on this. What did you think of Volume 3? Overall thoughts? We're not going to get into too deep into the specifics. Just want to talk about the season overall. What did you think about the final few episodes here? What stood out to you? What worked for you? What didn't work for you? What's your feeling walking away from What If Volume 3?
I think it sort of exemplifies what Phase 4 and Phase 5 have been, in that there have been a lot of at-bats and not a ton of hits, unfortunately. Okay. I mean, the Howard the Duck episode, that is, I had 2 favorites, the Howard the Duck episode and the Western episode. But the Howard the Duck episode, that was, an extension of what we got in season 1 with, the party bro Thor, and sort of a continuation of that. Just this fun madcap chase trying to protect their egg from all the different factions who think it's going to be some sort of doomsday device, and it ends up becoming Natasha Lyonne. Like the episode itself, I mean, even like Sam Jackson's like Fury out. I mean, everything about it was just really, really funny, really enjoyable. The Western episode, even though, and they sort of address it, but I mean, one of the things that Vogel had kind of dinged the show on, which I agreed, was the basic concept is, what if this? Like, what if this one thing changed? What are the ramifications of that? when you said an episode during the Wild West, there's more than what if this. It's not one. It's not one thing that has changed. I mean, but they sort of address it, saying, "Hey, out here in the depths of the multiverse, things get weird." Instead of what if, it's what the hell. So the setup of it, I'm like, yeah, you don't really follow along with how you initially proposed the show, but what we got was a lot of fun. And again, I think you see the missed opportunities that they could have had because Shang-Chi hasn't popped up since his film.
Yeah.
And I think everybody kind of came out of that being like, boy, Simu Liu, we really want to see him hang out with some other heroes. And pairing him with Kate Bishop, I mean, no matter what you thought of Falcon and Winter Soldier, Wyatt Russell's John Walker, even though he's kind of a cameo in this, people liked Wyatt Russell in that role. And bringing back Sonny Birch, Walton Goggins, any sort of Wild West thing you want to have Walton Goggins in there. And then just seeing how things panned out with Zhai Ling taking on the role of the Hood, like this was just a really, really well done episode. And we get to meet the Wild West version of an Iron Fist, one of the predecessors to Danny Rand. So I was like, this was a lot of fun. And in live action, man, I want to see Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop hang out. Like you had so much good stuff from Phase 4 and Phase 5 that they probably didn't take as much advantage of that they could. You see the opportunities that were kind of missed, and hopefully this is something that they'll rectify going forward. Some of the other episodes, like something that again Vogel had mentioned, like with Kingo saying, like being a little self-aware, the fact that he's a robot. I think you get that with Bucky in the Bucky and Red Guardian episode where he talks about, I thought I was brainwashed. It's like, that's not really a thing that they've touched on before. So, and the final two episodes, I love Haley Atwell's Captain Carter, but it just seemed like they were trying to wrap things up super, super fast because Uatu wasn't really essential to any of the storytelling until the end of episode 6.
Yeah.
Unless I'm missing something. But overall, it's like, it doesn't diminish the first 2 seasons, but it's not the finale that I think all of us would have preferred.
Yeah, Michael, we touched on all the episodes except for the Riri Williams one, the emergence that happened here as well. That was another episode on the tail. That's the one that got the Watcher to finally come down and get involved, which is what led us to those final 2 episodes. So what are your thoughts? What do you think of this volume 3 of What If from episode 3 on, and this ending we got, this 2-episode ending we got over the weekend?
Well, compared to my thoughts, Shannon's review is glowing.
Here we go. Strap in.
I mean, I don't have a favorite episode because I didn't like it. Let me be fair. Like, to be fair, I'll start with a positive, which is and I think I said this when we reviewed the first 2 episodes, I think the animation is spectacular. I think the directing, the visuals, the art direction, the direction of the sequences, the character animation, all top notch. Like, this is not a show where you're like, oh, well, they ran out of budget and these looked like shit. Like, What If looks like a very good show. Like, if you don't like the style, you don't like the style. But once you accept, kind of like we were saying with the Spider-Man show, Marvel's doing a lot of extreme animated styles. What If has a very specific style to it. And if you like that style, I think season 3 had some of the best animation out of the 3 seasons. I like a lot of the concepts that they had. I like the what if the emergence happened and what are the after effects of that. I like the let's do Marvel in the Old West. Like, I like a lot of the ideas. I think the execution from episode 1 to the season finale was so poor.
Wow.
On the writing, on the character development, on the execution of ideas, on the emotional arcs for your core characters, to what Shannon pointed out from what we mentioned in the first review, the core concept of how What If works. I just thought every week it was like, oh, here's a good idea. Oh, wow, they really whiffed that. And culminating in this 2-part finale, which I just found mostly very frustrating and annoying. First of all, so you're going to say, okay, these 4 women are the guardians of the multiverse. Cool. They're 4 awesome women.
Yeah.
The Kaori episode was, I think, for most of for a lot, I think for the three of us, was one of our favorite episodes of season 2. She's the first
100%.
original character created for the MCU. We thought she was awesome. When last we saw her, she showed up in Spain to tell the Queen of Spain that the indigenous people of North America weren't going to deal with their shit anymore because they had cosmic cube powers. I would love to know how she got from there to a spaceship with Captain Carter. And then we spent an entire episode on Natasha Lyonne as an egg.
Yeah.
Didn't spend a lot of time knowing how she became the character she became. So if we're going to have her be the character in the season finale, sure, you want to have an episode where everybody chases an egg is great, but maybe, hey, Howard and Darcy had a baby. She's got wings. She's kind of a freak. She needs to find her destiny. What if, like, there's just I think a more interesting story to that if you're going to use her in your finale. And then they made such a big deal. Everybody's so excited about Storm. When you have Storm wielding Thor's hammer,
Yeah.
maybe that should be an entire episode before you get to the finale. Maybe you should say, what if Aurora Monroe became the goddess of thunder? Because that's a story I think most people would be like, fuck, that's awesome. But instead, they just tossed Storm in here as it almost felt like let's give the fans Storm. We know they like her. Yeah. And so like just at every turn, it just felt like there were really interesting stories. And they're like, hey, here's a great concept. Let's do this with the concept. Let's zig left and tell the less interesting version of this. And I just found it really, really, really frustrating. Just across the board. Like some episodes like the Riri Williams, I would say I think the Riri Williams episode I think had the most potential. I like Riri Williams. I loved having Riri Williams, who is like the young I'm as smart as Tony Stark character, go up against Quentin Beck, who in the Marvel universe is the I worked for Tony Stark and I think he's an asshole character. But I think that when you're doing the what if the emergence happened, you sort of dumped us into this world where the earth had shattered, but people had somehow survived and all of the heroes had banded together. And it was like, well, that's pretty interesting. Like maybe like let's delve a little bit there. So just at every turn, I just felt like there was good ideas, good concepts, great characters on the table, but I just constantly felt let down by the storytelling. So I was very, very frustrated. And by the end of it, I mean, I just watched that the finale was basically, you know, a 25-minute action sequence between all four women and the Watchers, and really well shot, really well directed. And I could have given two shits about any of it. I was like, okay, like cool. Yeah. Peggy Carter sacrificed herself, and now she's watching Uatu maybe, and then they landed in Doctor Strange's universe, and he is cool. Yeah. Like it was just like there was no like I don't know. I just didn't buy any of the emotional arcs of any of it. And I just compared to seasons 1 and season 2, I just felt this was such a huge drop off for me.
Yeah, and of course you speak from a place as a showrunner and as an animation creator yourself, and you know, Shannon, you written a number of animation episodes, so you guys come from a learned point of view when it comes to these kinds of things with animation. And I'm not as learned with you guys about this kind of stuff, but like when I look at it, I think they took the wrong lessons from season 1 and 2, and that is we have to have an overarching story, because it seems to me like they played both sides of this and served neither master well. Like they wanted these one-off episodes of What If, which were cool. I love that Western episode. Absolutely loved it. Watched it like 3 times. Really loved it. But then they had this overall storyline. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're all going to come together in this final 2 episodes, and it's going to be topped off, or it's going to be started by the Watcher Uatu doing this in the Riri episode. Oh, and the egg is fully grown, and now it's a 20-year-old or teenager who's his mom wants her to get the donuts with no carbs. Like these kinds of, you're just like, I agree with you, Michael. Give me more. How did they end up together? What brought them together? What's the situation here? How did they get to one section to another? Like, why are they just thrown in here at the end to help the Watcher? I'm not going to let one of my friends die, and you do the sacrifice because you didn't do the buildup. Everything in those final 2 episodes had no weight, had no meaning, had no real effect for me. But the animation was incredible, absolutely incredible. I caught myself. I'm like, this is a 25-minute fight scene, yet I'm completely loving the visuals of it. And I'll be honest with you, as a comic book fan, sometimes I forgave crap stories if the art was great. in the comic book, because I'm like, this is just a joy to watch, to read, and to look at the panels. I'm loving this, right? And so sometimes that's the way it goes. But when you combine both, which I think season 1 and season 2 did really well for the most part, that's a real fun thing to experience. Yeah, and I felt like they try to do one-offs combined with an overarch story, and you can't do that because then you're wasting episodes and time on the episodes where you could have been touching base on the overall story, so that by the end there's not that weight that you wanted to have emotionally when she makes the sacrifice and when they end up in Doctor Strange's universe. And especially because Uatu is supposed to be teaching these watchers about what he learned, and they're supposed to come around to see his point of view in all of this. And that, I don't know, it happens, but it isn't really that poignant, you know? Michael, what were you going to say?
I know. I mean, I agree with you that the one-off stories and then trying to tie them all together in season 3 just did not cut it. Yeah. I don't think they took the lesson that you shouldn't do that. Like, I think that you can do that, and they could have done that here.
Oh, yeah, I guess that's what
but they didn't do it. Yeah. They didn't do it well. I mean, that's the thing is like, you know, if you had moved some things around, presented some characters in a different way, like, I mean, I could go through, but like one of the things that really bugged me, I was talking to some other writers about this with these what if episodes, is even when you had a concept, let's take the Western episode, because you guys both really loved it. And I think that was I agree with Shannon that you needed a little bit of, in a world where the cosmic cube landed on Earth in the 1800s, heroes rose early, and all you need to do is say something like that, and you're like, yeah, okay, cool. All the Marvel characters are in the West, but they would set up these things like Shang-Chi wanted to go find out what happened to his sister, and Kate Bishop wanted to kill the Hood because the Hood killed her family. And so, like, I'm watching this as a writer. I'm like, okay, cool. So, like, these two heroes are going to work together, but then obviously his sister is the Hood now. Yeah, and that's going to bring them. So now Shang-Chi and Kate Bishop are going to face off against each other. And two heroes are going to be on different sides of this. And who's going to win? We're going to see a Kate Bishop and Shang-Chi fight. And then instead it was just sort of like Shang-Chi, Walton Goggins was like, yeah, I killed your parents. And Shang-Chi was like, oh, and then Kate Bishop's like, sorry. He's like, it's cool, Kate. Like, everything just sort of ended in a very like, oh, I thought we were building to some really interesting dramatic tension here, but I guess we're just gonna wrap this up pretty easy. Okay, cool. That's nice.
That's a fair critique.
Yeah. Like, again, it was one of those ideas where it was like, there was like things were set up where you're like, okay, or even like the Howard and Darcy episode. Yeah. It's like, it's cool. You want to do a big episode where every character, every bad guy in the Marvel universe is chasing an egg. Cool. Yeah. But like, what you need in an episode like that is you need just the barest hint of like, what's the character story? Like, if Darcy had said at the beginning, Howard, I love you, but I'm really concerned that maybe you're not going to be a great dad. And then we go on this whole thing, and then Howard does some amazing thing at the end, and she's like, yeah, you are. Okay, you know what? You're going to be like, it's those little moments that really make an episode go from, oh, that was a fun idea, to, wow, I like Howard and Darcy together. And when you don't have those moments, it just turns into, here's a fun idea, and a bunch of people fought. And so I think like at every episode, I'd be like, okay, cool. This is an interesting idea. And then I constantly felt let down by what they ended up executing on. And I think the last two episodes, more than anything, really landed that, because listen, I'm all about 4 badass women cruising through the multiverse, kicking ass and taking names. And I love Peggy Carter. I think Peggy Carter, Captain Carter is one of the best things to come out of the What If series, but it just kind of all felt a little bit like, okay, all right. I think in previous seasons you had, like, obviously season 1 really had each character from one of the episodes came together at the end to save the multiverse from Ultron. Right. But even in the second season, you sort of had a Peggy Carter episode that was sort of the Peggy Carter version of Winter Soldier. Yeah. And she disappeared at the end, and you saw some people disappearing, and you sort of, okay, I get what this is. And so you just needed a couple more, like I said, had the Howard and Darcy episode ended with a young birdie, and then, Peggy Carter appeared and said, hey, You want to play a game? Like that, even little bits like that, you would have been like, oh, okay, there's some connective tissue here. So in really little ways, I think they could have taken the ideas they wanted to do and really turned this into something great. But instead, I just felt real let down. As I've said multiple times now, so I'm just going to shut up.
That's why he makes the big bucks, folks. But I mean, the whole thing had an obligatory feeling. It felt like something that they had to do versus something that they wanted to do. And especially those last 2 episodes, it just felt like we are racing to the finish line, get as much in as we can. I do think, like, as funny as I think David Harbour is as Red Guardian, I think you take that episode out and you give us the what if Storm picked up Mjolnir episode. I mean, there were so many, as Vogel already said, so many good ideas, but adding that extra little sprinkle at the end, and it doesn't have to be a ton. That extra little sprinkle takes something from good to great.
Yeah, I agree. I think no episode disappointed me more than the Red Guardian Bucky episode. Like, I was expecting to like be on board with this and have so much fun with it. I think David Harbour was great in this episode. However, the back and forth with him and Bucky was so lackluster, no chemistry, and Bucky even doing the occasional jokes. Like, what is happening here? Like, all of it just felt completely tone incorrect. And by the time it was over, I was more happy that it was over than, wow, this was a fun experience, you know? So I was disappointed. Mike, let me finish my point, Mike. And I think what you were saying, Michael, earlier is correct. Within the episodes themselves, there isn't arcs. So that's a great point you bring up, Michael. There aren't arcs within the singular episodes, and also little touch-ins or little check-ins rather with the overall arc of the season you're trying to tell. So yes, as you speak, my issues with the series and Shannon as well becomes more clear in my head as you guys talk about this stuff. This is the niggling feelings I had when I was watching it. It was like, what is it that's wrong here? Obligatory is correct. It also felt like they all knew that this was it and they weren't going to come back to it, and they were a little bit like not that happy about it, and it was coming through in some of the work, I think, overall. So go ahead, Mike. I don't want to chime in.
No, I was going to agree with what you and Shannon were saying. I think that Marvel has a very specific tone to it. Some people love it. Some people get annoyed by it. But Marvel's tone is there is a level of humor to it. There's like moments of levity. There's it's Natasha and Clint driving the car on Sokovia going, I'm gonna remodel the thing. Like, Shannon hates that moment. I think that moment's kind of funny. So like there are moments of levity, but I do think, to your point, particularly in that Red Guardian episode, there's like they sort of over-indexed on the, here's a funny moment. So like funny moments or funny lines would pop up, and like, look, I love Madison from She-Hulk as much as anybody loves Madison from She-Hulk. But when the Watchers are about to like destroy Uatu for what he's done, and you throw a Madison joke in there, I'm like, probably there's a better place for that joke. Probably somewhere else for that. So it's just like there was also that thing, and I think the Red Guardian episode is between the Mech Avengers episode and the Bucky Red Guardian episode, I really felt like, oh wow, you don't really get Red Guardian. Like you're doing this like, he's the funny guy. He's going to have the funny joke. But like, there's like what Dave Harbour does in Black Widow and what I hope he does in Thunderbolts is there's like he's kind of a pathetic character.
Right.
And he's a pathetic character. He's a shitty dad. And that sort of grounds it. So the funny stuff he says, you're like, okay, and this was just, I am making Russian joke now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was like more Boris and Natasha. And I was like,
For you kids out there, it's a Bullwinkle reference there, Rocky and Bullwinkle. A little bit. Yeah, but you're right.
Jason Alexander played him in the live action movie. You know what we're talking about.
Didn't Robert De Niro play him in something? Maybe I'm wrong.
Robert De Niro played Fearless Leader.
Oh, that's right. Fearless Leader.
Their boss.
That movie. Yikes. Yeah, so I don't think we need to belabor the point anymore. I just overall, I think the three of us were not excited about, or not. How can I say? We're disappointed, I guess, with What If Volume 3, and it seems like this is it. So it seems like a bad way to go out, unfortunately. But I think there are still rewatchable episodes in this season, 2 or 3, and then because I do like the Howard the Duck Darcy episode. I found myself wanting to be annoyed by the episode, but enjoying it. But Michael, you're right. At the end, though, it should have led to something more than just glowing things in the sky. We should have seen something with Birdie in the future, interactions, maybe even a montage to end things, to end up where Birdie is, so that when we see her again later in the last 2 episodes, we know that she's gone through these stages in a montage, so we have at least a little bit of background before she pops up. But,
and speaking of montage, the last thing I'll say, and then I'm going to end saying something very nice about Marvel animation, so that I don't just be, I don't end the year being like a Grinch. But speaking of montages, I do think ending What If with a montage of characters.
Yeah.
Every single one of which is more interesting to me than the things you chose to do in your 7 episodes. Give me the Thanos Wolverine episode. I want to see Weapon X Thanos. I want to see Colossus Jubilee. So there's all those things were flying at me. The Howard the Duck is the Scarlet Witch. And I'm like, yeah, I have questions and I would like to know more. So I was like, they ended this thing and I'm like, well, guys, we can leave those on the table now. But to your point, I will say that I think one of the reasons What If season 3 kind of feels as so much of a letdown is, despite the fact that we've all struggled through a good bit of phases 4 and 5 of Marvel, and we've gone up and down on how we're feeling about Marvel animation by and large has really impressed. I mean, What If season 1 was absolutely a joy. What If season 2 was a delight last year. X-Men 97 is not just one of the best animated shows of the past year. It's hands down one of the best TV shows of the past year. And so we've had such heights of animation. And with the trailer that we just watched for Spider-Man, I think we're going to continue to see a bunch of really cool stuff. We've got Marvel Zombies coming later this year. We've got the Wakanda series coming later this year. So I do think that Marvel is really doing some interesting stuff in animation, and I hope they continue doing it. And I hope that what happened here in What If season 3, they see a lot of the fan response, because there's definitely people who enjoyed it. And I'm sure there's people listening to us right now. They're going to be like, Vogel, you're sour grapes, go do something with yourself. This was super fun. I had a blast, and awesome. I'm glad you did. But I do hope that they do see that this was the most mixed and kind of course correct as they move forward.
Yeah. Shannon, final thoughts on the season?
I mean, there are fun moments. And again, that Western episode, I will go back and watch that one again. I'll go back and watch Howard the Duck again. Those were a lot of fun. It does make me not that I want to end like a Grinch, but I sure hope Matthew Chauncey ends up on the nice list and not the naughty list when X-Men 97 season 2 comes out. Because when you look at the level that they hit with that first season, and knowing that he was one of, the principal architects of What If season 3, and going into the second, taking over for X-Men 97 season 2, fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. Granted, they're very different shows, and it's a very different way to tell a story. So fingers crossed. We'll see what happens.
I think that's an excellent point. Cautiously optimistic, but looking at volume 3, you're like, I don't know. So. But Mike, we make excellent points about Marvel animation. You're right. So there's better stuff to come for sure, it looks like, and we're gonna have fun enjoying it. That being said, I think the issues for us, it seems like it's more about writing and overall construction of a season rather than the animation or the voiceover performances. So that's where I think maybe they can do a little more work, and hopefully that is stuff that is of a higher quality going forward with some of the Marvel animation for sure. All right, well, there you go. That's our spoiler review of What If Volume 3 and our reaction and reviews to your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man trailer that dropped here. So thanks for watching or listening to us. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, I'd like to follow us on social media. On Twitter, it's at @geek_buddies. On Instagram, at @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's at Shannon_McClung. On Instagram, at Shannon the Geek Buddy. If you'd like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is at MKToon. If you'd like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is at The Rocha Says.
Mike A.
After you do all that following, go ahead and smash the like button below. Subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw Nation page. Check out all the amazing content he has got there. Leave your comments below. Let us know what you thought of the Spider-Man trailer. Let us know what you thought of What If Season 3. You can let me know that I'm wrong and I'm a Grinch and you had a great time. I am sure that is going to pop up in there, and I'm glad that you did. If you're listening to us on a podcast, leave us some stars and comments so we go up in the rankings. And as always, retweet this video, post it on your socials, send it to your friends, and tell them to hang out with your buddies, the Geek Buddies.
You can just see Matthew Chauncey on his burner account. You know what? You don't know anything about animation. Anyway, all right, let's get out of here. Much love to you guys. Oh, if you haven't watched our previous episodes, Our Skeleton Crew review episode is up. Our main episode from this past weekend is up, where we talked all the Superman, Batman issues, Spidey 4 issues, talked about some other stories as well. All of that is up for you all to watch. And of course, later on, we will have stuff later on this week. But from the three of us, wishing you all a very happy, healthy, and safe new year. Enjoy yourselves. Come back and join us in 2025. We got so much to talk about in 2025. But thank you for a wonderful 2024, and have yourselves a wonderful new year. We'll talk to you next time on Geek Bites, brought to you by the
Geek
Buddies! Hey!